I never thought that someone could stoop to such a level as to steal a watermelon from someone's garden. But as it turned out, I was wrong. I woke up to what can only be described as a horticultural crime scene in my own backyard. My prize-winning watermelon, the one I babied like it was the last melon on earth, whispered sweet nothings to, and protected from squirrels like a paranoid bodyguard, was gone. Not eaten, not pecked at, not even gently sampled. No, it was kidnapped. Full-on, straight-up, felony-level stolen. At first, I tried to stay rational. Maybe it had rolled off on some bizarre watermelon adventure. Maybe, I thought, a freak gust of wind sent it bouncing down the block like a fruity tumbleweed. But then I saw it. The vine. Torn apart like a soap opera love affair gone wrong. My stomach dropped like a brick in a swimming pool. Someone took it. Someone had the audacity to snatch the crown jewel of the neighborhood garden tour. And deep down, I already knew who the culprit was. Karen, the queen of passive-aggressive yard notes and unsolicited HOA complaints, lived directly across the street. She had a sixth sense for meddling. If drama had a bat signal, she'd be the first to show up. This woman once tried to argue that the sidewalk in front of my house was technically her family's ancestral land. She once called the police on a group of kids because they had the audacity to wait for the ice cream truck. Oh, and let's not forget the time she swiped a neighbor's Amazon package and then gaslit them into thinking they ordered it wrong. And now she had escalated to fruit-based felonies. I ripped my phone off the charger and pulled up the security camera app like I was launching a spy mission. My heart pounded as I scrubbed through the footage, fast-forwarding to the middle of the night. And there she was, 3:12 a.m., Karen. She slinked into my yard like a robe-wearing raccoon on a criminal bender. Slippers flapping, hair in curlers, that trademark smug look on her face that said, "Rules don't apply to me." But this wasn't just a petty note or a package swipe. This time, she was hauling off my watermelon like a drunken Santa. She nearly tripped, twice, trying to hoist it over the fence. I'll be honest, I was rooting for gravity. But nope, she made it. The watermelon cleared the barrier. Karen waddled away like she just pulled off the heist of the century. My jaw clenched so tight, I thought I might crack a molar. This wasn't theft. This was war. I marched across the street like a man on a mission, fists balled, blood pressure spiking. I pounded on her front door like it owed me rent. No answer. I jabbed the doorbell like it personally wronged me. Still nothing. Finally, I heard the sound of villainy shuffling behind the door, and then it cracked open just enough for her squinty little judgmental eyes to peek through. "Oh," she said, blinking like I'd interrupted her bubble bath. "It's you." "Where is my watermelon?" I growled, holding up my phone like a smoking gun. She tilted her head and faked confusion like a B-movie actress. "Watermelon? What watermelon?" I nearly lost it. "The one you yanked out of my yard last night. You're on camera, Karen." She had the gall to laugh. "Oh, that sad little thing? It was abandoned, dear, all alone. I rescued it." "Rescued it?" I repeated, blinking hard, my eye starting to twitch. "You stole it." She waved a hand like she was brushing away a gnat. "Tomato. Honestly, I did you a favor. Watermelons are meant to be appreciated, not hoarded like treasure." I inhaled through my nose so hard, I might have sucked the doormat off her porch. "Give it back." She sighed like I'd just asked her to donate a kidney. "Well, here's the thing. I've already prepped it for brunch. I'm having a guest over. Watermelon salad is the centerpiece." My brain briefly flatlined. "Your watermelon salad?" She gave a smug little shrug. "Possession is 9/10 of the law, darling." I could feel the rage fizzing up in my chest like a bottle of soda dropped down the stairs. Karen was in peak form. Smug, delusional, and entirely too pleased with herself. And worst of all, she usually got away with it. But this time, she messed with the wrong gardener. I stepped back and forced a smile so fake it should have come with a warning label. "You know what, Karen? You're absolutely right. Enjoy your salad." She blinked, thrown off by my sudden zen. "Well, thank you. I plan to." I spun on my heel and marched back to my house, already plotting revenge like a cartoon villain twirling his mustache. Step 1, buy another watermelon. Step 2, inject it with the kind of hot sauce that makes grown men cry on YouTube. Step 3, make sure it ends up in Karen's greedy little hands. I walked inside, grinning like a man who just found the instruction manual for karma. She wanted a free watermelon. She was about to get one, seasoned with justice. Karen thought she'd won. She thought she could strut into my yard, swipe my masterpiece, and toss it into a Pinterest-worthy brunch like I didn't exist. But she miscalculated one key thing: me. This wasn't about fruit anymore. This was about retribution. And if justice had a taste, it was going to set her entire soul on fire. I popped open my laptop and searched for the hottest hot sauce known to humankind. I wasn't looking for your average, mildly uncomfortable level of spice. I needed liquid regret. And then I found it. Carolina Reaper extract. Even the name sounded like a lawsuit waiting to happen. 1.8 million Scoville units. That's not heat. That's a spiritual experience. Compared to this stuff, jalapenos are basically cucumbers with an attitude. This was the kind of sauce that broke friendships and sweat glands. And it was exactly what I needed to ruin Karen's little watermelon brunch of doom. I rushed to Walmart, took a new watermelon, a set of syringes and rubber gloves, because this demonic liquid should definitely not touch the skin. As I stood in the checkout line, an old woman looked in my cart and smiled. "That's a mighty fine watermelon you've got there." "Young man," I smiled back. If only she knew the chaos that fruit was about to unleash. Back home, I rolled up my sleeves and set up like I was prepping for surgery. But this was more important than saving lives. This was revenge. I geared up like I was heading into a hazmat zone. Gloves, face mask, even a pair of fogged-up safety goggles. This wasn't some silly prank. This was performance art with a spicy kick. With surgical precision, I filled the syringe with that hellfire sauce and began injecting it deep into the watermelon's core like I was prepping a nuclear fruit. I poked it in multiple spots, making sure the Carolina Reaper venom blended seamlessly with the natural juices. No weird spots, no red flags. Every single bite would pack the kind of heat that ruins family bonds, and by the time Karen figured it out, her taste buds would already be filing for divorce. Once I sealed the injection holes with a little wax, it looked flawless. Untouched, pristine, dangerously innocent. I stepped back, arms crossed, admiring my work like it belonged in a spicy food museum. This watermelon wasn't just bait. It was a ticking time bomb disguised as brunch. Now came the tricky part, getting it into Karen's hands without tipping her off. And then it hit me, like divine culinary inspiration straight from the petty gods above. The neighborhood free food table. Every week, folks left out extra produce for anyone to take. But Karen, she treated it like her personal grocery aisle, grabbing everything like she paid taxes on the pavement. If I left the watermelon there, she'd take it. No hesitation. That evening, as the sun dipped low and the shadows did me a favor, I made my move. Casually, like I was just another generous neighbor, I dropped the spicy thyme bomb right in the middle of the table and slipped into the nearest bush like a discount spy. Didn't even have time to check my phone before she came power waddling down the street, giant sunglasses on, empty tote bag in tow, looking like a clearance rack Bond villain. She scoped the table like a hawk at a buffet, and bam, her eyes locked on the target. She reached out, paused for half a second like she was pretending to be humble, and then snatched that thing up like it had her name carved into it. I bit down hard on my knuckle to keep from bursting out laughing. It was just too perfect. She tottered back toward her house with it, grunting the whole way, almost dropping it twice like it was cursed. But she made it. Mission delivered. Now it was just a matter of time before the show began. The next morning, I woke up with the kind of excitement I hadn't felt since Christmas as a kid. This was it, Karen's pretentious backyard brunch, Judgment Day. I grabbed my binoculars, not because I'm a creep, but because I'm a fan of poetic justice, and got into position at the window. Sure enough, Karen was out back setting up a picture-perfect dining table like she was auditioning for Suburban Housewives of West Pines. Her friends came, just as insufferable, all dressed as if they were going to a royal tea party, not to a backyard in the middle of an ordinary street. And another man. Then came the moment of glory. Karen strutted outside with the watermelon like it was a championship trophy, her chin high, her ego higher. She sliced it open with theatrical flair, revealing nothing suspicious, just juicy, red, traitorous fruit. She looked so pleased with herself, like the queen of produce crime. She passed out thick slices to everyone, naturally saving the biggest one for herself. She raised it in the air and gave some dramatic little toast about community and freshness, completely oblivious to the culinary grenade in her hand. And then, oh sweet heaven, she took a giant bite. For a split second, she held it together. Then the transformation began. Her face froze. Eyes went wide. Her lip quivered like she just remembered all her life's regrets at once. And then she screamed. Not just any scream. This was the sound of 1,000 pepper demons tap dancing on her soul. She chucked the watermelon like it bit her back and fell out of her chair like she'd been electrocuted. Her guests, clearly confused, took their own bites. And the chain reaction was glorious. One woman shot watermelon juice across the table like a sprinkler. Another bolted for the hose like it was a lifeline. One poor soul launched herself into the kiddie pool like it was baptism by fire. Meanwhile, Karen was going full panic mode, hair flapping, limbs flailing, dragging herself inside like she was dying in a soap opera. Through my binoculars, I watched her chug milk straight from the carton like it was holy water. Didn't matter. Carolina Reaper doesn't forgive. It haunts. Then came the best part, the encore. Karen stumbled back outside, face redder than a boiled lobster, mouth hanging open like she was trying to suck oxygen from space. She waved the empty milk carton like a white flag and shouted at her guests, "Who did this?" I had to bury my face in a pillow. I was shaking with laughter. Her guests were traumatized. Her brunch was in ruins. And the cherry on top? I had it all on camera. My GoPro, hidden neatly in a bush, caught every second in glorious HD. Karen, the neighborhood menace, had just been served the spiciest revenge salad in history. And the show wasn't over yet. Her backyard looked like a failed episode of a cooking show meets a disaster movie. People were stumbling around, knocking over chairs, guzzling water straight from the hose like dehydrated camels. One woman climbed into the kiddie pool and spread out like she was reborn, soaked, and screams, coughs, dramatic gasps. The backyard brunch turned into a full-blown episode of Survivor Scoville edition. But Karen? Oh, Karen was the headliner. Gone was the carefully styled hair and smug expression. Now she was a sweaty, mascara-smeared mess, stumbling across the lawn like a pepper-scorched zombie. She clutched her throat, flapped her arms like she was signaling a rescue helicopter, and locked eyes with one guest, a sun hat-wearing woman who had just barely recovered enough to speak. The woman croaked out, What did you put in this?" The woman wheezed like she'd just eaten lava, her voice barely more than a charred whisper. Karen tried to say something, anything, but all she managed was a strangled, gargling sound, like a bagpipe dying in real time. She slammed the empty milk carton on the table like it had betrayed her, then grabbed for the lemonade pitcher in desperation. The second that citrusy acid hit her tongue, she let out a sound so ungodly it could have summoned a priest. She slapped the glass clean off the table, where it shattered into 1,000 angry pieces on the patio. "Who did this?" she finally screeched, voice cracking like a radio stuck between stations. The backyard went dead quiet. Her guests, still licking their wounds, some literally, glanced around in confused silence. A few of them probably thought it was some freak culinary accident. But Karen knew she didn't just taste spice. She tasted betrayal, and it had a familiar flavor. Her eyes scanned the scene like a heat-seeking missile, searching for the guilty party. And then, of course, her gaze slid slowly across the street, right to my house. I dropped beneath the window like a soldier under sniper fire, heart thudding in my chest. Did she see me? I wasn't sure, but I wasn't taking any chances. I peeked out again just in time to see Karen's nostrils flaring so wide she could have taken flight. She wiped her mouth like she was scrubbing off the crime scene and muttered something I'm pretty sure was part curse, part threat. Then, as if remembering she still had a brunch to host, she turned to her guests and forced the fakest smile I'd ever seen. I think the watermelon might have turned, she croaked, clinging to the last scraps of dignity. The woman in the sun hat wasn't buying it.
Gone bad? She snapped. Karen, my tongue feels like it's been set on fire and then dipped in battery acid. This isn't gone bad. This is an act of war. Karen's eye twitched so violently, I thought it might spin right out of her head. She balled her fists and took a deep breath, still trying to keep up the act. Let's all just calm down. But the illusion shattered completely when one of the guests, a silver-haired man who had been quietly suffering until now, stood up and held out his phone. Karen, he said, voice disturbingly calm. I just looked it up. This is Carolina Reaper extract. Someone injected the hottest pepper on the planet into that watermelon. You could hear the collective gasp from across the street. Karen's mouth fell open slightly, and her whole face warped into a perfect mix of horror and rage. This was sabotage, she hissed, voice dropping low, like she was auditioning for a revenge thriller. Her hands gripped the edge of the table, knuckles white, eyes burning. The brunch had officially transformed from lighthearted to full-blown fruit-based felony. And from the way she glared in my general direction, I had no doubt who she wanted to blame. I backed away from the window, already running through my mental playbook. I had prepared for this. I expected her fury. What I hadn't accounted for was the scale of destruction. It was beautiful. Just as I was pondering my next move, my phone buzzed. Text from Mr. Thompson, my neighbor and fellow spectator of chaos. Thompson, did you see what happened to Karen? Me? Oh yeah. Tragic. Truly heartbreaking. Thompson, you wouldn't happen to know anything about that watermelon, would you? Me? Who, me? Nah, just a concerned citizen. I stared at my screen for a second, then couldn't help myself. Me? But whoever did do it is a hero. Thompson replied with a laughing emoji. Yeah, he knew. Everyone probably knew by now. Back across the street, Karen had morphed into a rage-fueled private investigator. She stomped around her yard with a phone glued to her ear, probably dialing the police, or worse, the HOA board. Her guests began shuffling out, some still coughing, a few giving her side eyes as they passed like she personally insulted their taste buds. It looked like the aftermath of a chili cook-off from hell. Karen finished her call and spun on her heel, marching inside like a woman possessed. She slammed the front door with enough force to scare birds off 4 rooftops. I sat back in my chair and let out a long, satisfied breath. She was up to something. That was certain. But it didn't matter. Not when I held the nuclear codes. I reached for my laptop and pulled up the footage from my not-so-subtle GoPro, nestled in the bushes. There it was. Crystal clear video of Karen's downfall in 4K Ultra HD. Her smug grin, the first bite, the exact moment her soul tried to leave her body. It was art. This wasn't just a prank. This was digital immortality. Now, the only question was how to use it. Part of me wanted to upload it instantly, let the world bear witness, but another part knew better. If I was smart, I could drag this out, really make her sweat, literally. As I watched Karen scream frame by frame, a slow grin spread across my face. She thought she'd won the second she swiped that watermelon. But the truth? That was just the opening act. The fact that Karen had gone completely silent after her meltdown should have been my first red flag.
The woman who once filed noise complaints about birds chirping too early was now radio silent. No porch shouting, no lawn glares, not even a vague, passive-aggressive social media post, which could mean only one thing. She was plotting something. I kept a steady watch on her house, like I was bird watching for chaos. A few brunch casualties were still outside, limping toward their cars. One woman, still fanning her mouth like it owed her money, shook her head and drove off. Another guy paced near the sidewalk, no doubt texting about what just happened, like he was live blogging a crime scene. Eventually, they all left, leaving Karen alone to stew in her personal sauna of rage and humiliation. I checked my phone. No new updates from Thompson, but I didn't need them. By now, I was sure most of the block had heard about what went down. The tale of Queen Karen and the fiery fruit was already becoming local legend. Then, like clockwork, her front door flew open. Karen marched out, clutching her phone like it was a weapon, her face still blotchy and puffed up like a cartoon after an explosion. And she was headed straight for me. I barely had time to fix my face before the doorbell started blaring, again and again, like she was trying to break the door with rage alone. I took a calming breath, adjusted my shirt like a man about to face trial, and opened the door. And there she stood, flared nostrils, fire in her eyes, one hand on her hip like she owned the sidewalk. "You," she snapped, her voice still raspy, but charged with fury. I raised one eyebrow. "Me? Don't you dare play dumb," she snarled, waving her phone at me like it had evidence. "I know you did this." I leaned on the doorframe, keeping my expression somewhere between innocent and amused. "Did what, Karen? Did what exactly?" I asked, tilting my head just enough to fuel the fire. Karen's face contorted into something between rage and indigestion. "The watermelon," she snarled through clenched teeth. "You poisoned it." I blinked like she'd just accused me of plotting world domination. "Poisoned? Karen, I think the word you're searching for is seasoned." That broke her. She lunged a step closer and jabbed a finger right into my chest like she was pressing a lawsuit button. "You think this is funny? My guests almost died." I crossed my arms casually. I don't think that's accurate. They looked very much alive when they were screaming and sprinting out of your backyard. Her lips vanished into a thin white line. Impressive, honestly. Like her whole mouth tried to disappear out of spite. "You're gonna pay for this," she hissed. "Oh." I raised a brow. "And how exactly do you plan to do that?" That's when she grinned. Not a friendly grin, but kind of grin that makes villains twirl their mustaches. "I called the cops." That caught me off guard for a split second, but I reeled it in fast. "Oh, excellent," I said with a smile. "Did you also report yourself for theft while you were at it?" That wiped the smug off her face real quick. Without another word, I pulled out my phone, opened my camera app, and tapped over to the security feed. A few clicks later, there it was. Crisp night vision footage of Karen sneaking into my yard at 3:12 a.m., dragging off my watermelon like she was committing some bizarre produce heist. I turned the screen toward her, watching her face pale like she just saw a ghost with legal credentials. "I'm sure the police will love this," I said, tapping the screen. "Breaking and entering. Theft. Possibly even fruit napping in the first degree." Karen's jaw worked like a ventriloquist dummy stuck mid-performance. She'd come over ready to crush me. Instead, she found herself cornered, boxed in, and thoroughly outgunned. Her eyes darted around like she was scanning for an emergency exit, but there was nowhere left to run. Then she tried to puff herself back up, spine straight, chin high. "That doesn't matter," she said with forced confidence. "You still tampered with food. That's illegal." I shrugged. "Not really. I left a watermelon on a public sharing table. If someone chose to take it home and eat it, that's on them." Her eye twitched so hard I thought it might launch off her face. She was losing her grip, and she knew it. Her hand tightened around her phone like she was fantasizing about smashing it through my forehead. Then she changed tactics. "I'll sue you." I sighed like I just heard a toddler declare they were moving out. For what? Providing free produce? For emotional damage? Intentional trauma? Something? I'll find a lawyer. That made me laugh. Like out loud. Karen had that classic threaten a lawsuit and hope people panic energy. But today, she picked the wrong guy. Well, Karen, I said, slipping my phone back into my pocket. Best of luck with that. But just so you know, if you do sue, I'll be filing a counterclaim for theft and trespassing. And unlike you, I've got actual video proof. So, I like my chances. She opened her mouth again, probably to spit out another empty threat, but I cut her off. Oh, and one last thing, I said, flashing a grin just sharp enough to sting. I filmed your entire backyard meltdown. Every fiery bite, every scream, every guest diving into the kiddie pool like it was Judgment Day. Karen's face drained of all color in an instant. She stumbled back half a step, clutching her phone like it was the last float on the Titanic. You wouldn't, she whispered. Wouldn't I? I asked, raising an eyebrow. She hesitated, gears turning in her scorched brain, trying to calculate a way out. But there wasn't one. She was outmaneuvered, outplayed, and completely out of ammo. For a second, I thought she might actually do the unthinkable, apologize. But no, of course not. She let out the loudest, most dramatic huff known to man, spun on her heel, and stomped off like a toddler denied a toy. She slammed her front door so hard, I'm surprised her shingles didn't fly off. I stood there for a beat, enjoying the rare silence she left behind like a fine wine. Then I pulled out my phone and fired off a message to Thompson. Me, well, that was fun. Thompson, please tell me you got it on camera. Me, every glorious second. Thompson, upload it. I glanced across the street at Karen's house, still weighing my options. Oh, I was going to post it, just not yet, because Karen had just made a fatal mistake. She declared war, and if she thought this was bad, she had no clue what was coming next. The silence returned. That was my first red flag. Karen going mute after a full-scale brunch explosion? Unnatural. There were no porch tirades, no HOA threats, not even a vague, passive-aggressive Facebook post about toxic neighbors, which could only mean one thing. She was planning. And Karen never plans anything small. I kept watch. For 36 hours, her house stayed quiet. No stomping, no cackling, no Karen. It was creepy. Even her usual complaints to code enforcement were suspiciously absent. But that silence, that was the real noise. Then, just after sunrise the next day, it happened. I opened my front door and froze. There it was, a package, just sitting on my porch like a forgotten Amazon order from the Twilight Zone. No delivery truck had stopped by. I hadn't ordered anything. Immediately, I went full conspiracy mode. I grabbed a stick from the yard and poked it like it might detonate. Nothing blew up. Good start. Still, I opened it slowly, half expecting glitter or snakes, but no. Inside the box was a watermelon, a perfect one, sitting on a bed of bubble wrap like it had flown first class. Taped to the top was a handwritten note. I unfolded it, bracing for Karen's signature pettiness. Hope you enjoy a normal watermelon for once. Maybe next time, don't act like a child. I stared at the note, then at the fruit, then back to the note. Was this an insult? A peace offering? A weird combination of both? Only Karen would think mailing someone a melon was a masterclass in vengeance. But something felt off. Karen wasn't the gift-giving type, even sarcastically. I placed it on the kitchen counter, eyes still narrowed. Was this just her way of trying to end things? Or was it bait? I almost tossed it, but curiosity got the better of me. I grabbed a knife and cut it open, expecting glitter, a prank, maybe even a note. At first glance, it looked fine. Red, juicy, full of seeds. But then I caught a whiff. The smell was off. Not sweet, not fresh. Sour, sharp, almost chemical. I dipped in with a spoon and gave it a cautious sniff. And that's when it hit me. Vinegar. The smell hit me like a slap with a sour mop. Karen had tampered with the watermelon. I actually chuckled out loud, shaking my head in disbelief. She tried to flip the script, turn my prank back on me, like this was some kind of fruity Cold War. But here's the thing. I'm not an idiot. I don't trust anything that crosses my porch with a hint of Karen on it. I picked up my phone and shot a text to Thompson. Karen just sent me a watermelon. Pretty sure she messed with it. Thompson. Of course she did. What's in it? Smells like vinegar. I think she tried to ruin the taste. Thompson. Wow, that's incredibly lame. I know, right? It's almost sad. I put the phone down and stared at the vinegar melon again. After all the chaos, all the screaming, all the guests diving into the kiddie pool like it was the only salvation left on earth, this was her grand revenge? A spoiled watermelon and a passive-aggressive note? I expected more from the queen of condescension. And that's when it hit me. I wasn't going to let her just slide this across the table and walk away. No. She wanted to play games? Then it was time for the encore. I set my phone up at the perfect angle and hit record. First, I held up her note and read it aloud in my best over-the-top Karen impression. Think wine mom meets courtroom drama. Then I panned the camera down to the watermelon and sliced another chunk, just to highlight the weird sour stench wafting out. So Karen sent me a little gift, I said casually, holding up a spoonful of juice like it was radioactive. Apparently, she thinks I need a normal watermelon. How thoughtful. I brought the spoon closer and immediately recoiled in disgust. Only problem? It smells like it was marinated in a bottle of expired cleaning supplies. I grinned. Guess someone's still salty, they can't handle a little heat. I hit stop and sent the video straight to Thompson. This is going to be hilarious. Thompson, you posting it? Not yet. I've got a better idea. Instead of posting it for the world, I sent the video directly to the source, Karen. No caption, no message, just the raw footage of me absolutely clowning her vinegar revenge. And then I waited. Took less than 10 minutes. Karen, what is your problem? I smirked at my phone before typing a reply. Just letting you know your little prank flopped. But hey, A+ for effort. Karen, it was a joke. Oh, now it's a joke? Didn't seem like you were laughing when you tried to call the cops on me. Silence. I could practically hear her jaw grinding from across the street. She hated this, hated being outsmarted, hated being outplayed at her own passive-aggressive game. And that was exactly why I was enjoying every second of it. But just as I was basking in the glory of my victory, another message popped up. Karen, you think this is over? I paused. There it was. The real Karen. Not the smirking, brunch-hosting, HOA weaponizing Karen. The burn everything down Karen. The one who'd rather light the neighborhood on fire than admit she lost. I sighed and looked out the window at her house. If she wanted to keep playing, fine. I didn't start this war, but I sure as hell was going to finish it. I knew she wouldn't let it go. She couldn't. Her ego was duct taped together with pride and spite. And now, after being publicly roasted, doused in milk, and reduced to a meme in my camera roll, she was coming back swinging. The only question was how. For a full day, nothing happened. No yelling, no stomping, no Karen creeping across my yard like a PTA Terminator. It was eerie. Karen being quiet was like a volcano holding its breath. Then, that night, my phone buzzed. Notification from the neighborhood group chat. I wasn't usually active in there, but I had a strong hunch who this was about. I opened it up, and bingo. A long overdramatic manifesto from Karen herself. Hello, neighbors. I wanted to take a moment to address something very serious. I snorted. As you may have heard, I was the victim of a cruel and malicious prank involving a poisoned watermelon. Oh, she really said poisoned. I won't name names, but I think we all know who did it. Right, real subtle, Karen. This kind of behavior is dangerous and has no place in our community. I will be reporting this to the HOA and pursuing legal action. If anyone else has experienced harassment, please come forward. I nearly dropped my phone from laughing. Poisoned watermelon? Legal action? She was going full Shakespeare over a fruit salad. I scrolled through the replies. Most were confused, a few clearly trying to be polite, but one stood out. Thompson. Perfect.
Karen was trying to rally the villagers with pitchforks, but they brought popcorn instead. And then came her encore. Also, I'll be organizing a community meeting this weekend to discuss harassment and neighborhood safety. I hope you'll all attend. Ho ho ho, she wanted a public shaming? Perfect. Because what she didn't realize was that she'd just walked into her own televised downfall. I opened my laptop and pulled up the gold mine. The video footage of Karen's meltdown. The screams, the milk chugging, the kiddie pool flop. It was all there. Crystal clear, 4K, Ultra HD karma. I uploaded it with a title that basically wrote itself. Karen stole my watermelon, so I gave her a spicy surprise. And then I hit post. The reaction was immediate. Likes, comments, shares. Boom. It was viral by suburban standards in under an hour. People were loving it. Justice, comedy. Spicy chaos. It had all the ingredients of a classic. I kept refreshing the page, watching the numbers climb like a chili pepper challenge leaderboard. Right on cue, my phone buzzed. Karen, take that video down, now. I grinned like a man who just won bingo and the lottery in the same afternoon. I took my sweet time replying. Me? Which video, exactly? The one where you commit theft on camera? Or the one where your brunch turned into a fire-breathing circus? She fired back so fast, the message was basically alphabet soup. Karen, you know which one. I'll sue you for defamation. I leaned back in my chair and let out a laugh loud enough to scare a squirrel off the porch. Me? Defamation, Karen, it's literally raw footage. No music, no voiceover, no TikTok filters. Just you stealing my watermelon and facing natural consequences. If anyone should sue, maybe start with yourself. Then, silence. She had no comeback. No rebuttal. Just digital fumes. But a few seconds later, another message came in. Karen? Fine. You think you've won. You haven't. This isn't over. I sighed. Classic Karen. Even when she was down, face-planted in public shame, she just couldn't let it go. At this point, though, the scoreboard was clear. She had lost her credibility, her dignity, and every last ounce of fake neighborhood authority she clung to. The next morning, I stepped out to grab the mail and immediately noticed something off. Karen's house was quiet. No annoying music playing through outdoor speakers like she was DJing for squirrels. No overly loud good morning to neighbors she hated. Just eerie stillness. Then I saw it. Right there on the lawn, bold as day. For sale. I nearly dropped my coffee mug. Karen? Moving? I just stood there, mouth slightly open, trying to process the idea that the queen of petty warfare was packing her bags. Had I really won? Had the watermelon war driven her to surrender? Part of me wanted to pop champagne. Another part was weirdly disappointed. I mean, life had been like a live-action sitcom ever since she declared herself HOA dictator. Would things even be interesting without her? Then I remembered. The Amazon thefts, the false reports, the HOA abuse, the fruit crimes. Yeah, no, this wasn't a loss. This was a victory parade. Right on cue, Thompson strolled over, hands in his hoodie, sipping his coffee like a man surveying the battlefield. Well, he said, staring at the sign, looks like you finally broke her. I chuckled. Wasn't trying to break her, just wanted to teach her a lesson. Thompson smirked. Lesson learned. Of course, she didn't vanish immediately. That would have been way too easy. She spent the next few weeks trying to offload her house, probably praying the shame would fade faster than the listing price dropped. But here's the kicker. The neighborhood had seen the video, heard the story, lived the saga, and every time a potential buyer showed up, someone,
definitely not me, would casually mention the viral watermelon incident. Oh, you haven't seen the clip? You should check it out. Word spread fast. Karen's house sat on the market longer than a cold casserole at a potluck. By the time she finally sold it, she looked like she'd aged a decade, eyes sunken, posture defeated, soul slightly charred. No dramatic farewell, no last-minute sabotage, just a moving truck, a hollow expression, and a silent goodbye. I stood on my porch as the truck rolled away, arms crossed, finally breathing in the sweet, fresh air of a Karen-free neighborhood. No more HOA drama. No more porch confrontations. No more stolen produce. It was peaceful. Too peaceful. And then my phone buzzed. Unknown number. You think you've won? This isn't over. I stared at the message for a long second. Then, slowly, I smirked. Because, of course she couldn't resist one final act of pettiness. Karen had moved, but something told me she wasn't quite finished. If you like this story, please don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel and leave a comment below this video. We also recommend listening to the story of how Karen called the police at 4 a.m. because I refused to move my Jeep off my driveway so her guests could park. To listen to this story, just click on the video box on the left. Thank you for watching.